You know, one thing I watching some of these movies, children's movies with my children, is that there's some really inappropriate things in some of these movies back in the 80s and 90s.
They sneak them in. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's get it started. Welcome to another episode of Cash's Top 5. Today, joining me, my good friend Shy Holder, longtime radio friend and sports fanatic and fellow Warren Central alum.
Yes, sir.
And Shy, what top 5 list are we doing today?
We are doing, it's actually a little bit ironic because I don't really like movies, but I love baseball. So there's like a little corner of movies I love, and we are doing top 5 baseball movies.
Top 5 baseball movies. Now, you had a couple suggestions for me when I asked what you wanted to do. One of them was top 5 hottest TV moms, which
not just hot TV moms, but like sneaky hot TV moms. Like,
that's even better.
I feel like it's pretty obvious who like the hot moms would be. Like, it's in your face, but there's some that are flying under the radar. I mean, they don't get their just due. So
we are absolutely doing that episode in the future
okay.
as well. But today it's baseball movies, which I had to kind of revisit because there were a couple that I hadn't seen before. And I was like, I really need to watch them. Now is a great opportunity to do so and watch a couple of them I hadn't seen in a while. So let's get started. Top 5 baseball movies. What do you have in the number 5 spot?
I'm starting out controversial here. This is my hot take. My number 5 baseball movie of all time is Space Jam. Hear me out here. Hear me out.
Okay.
It is a baseball movie. It is about a baseball player who was abducted. All he wants to do is play baseball. He's doing all of these things, Michael Jordan is, to get back to playing baseball. He doesn't like basketball anymore. All the movie is about a guy, he just loves the game of baseball. He wants to get back and play baseball. That's it.
I can't believe. See, I thought about Space Jam, but I was like, if I pick that, I feel like you might give me some shit for picking that.
No.
But you clearly thought we had the same wavelength there.
I've been convinced. I was not always, of this thought, but after some research and some reflecting on it, it's pretty obvious. Baseball movie. Just like Die Hard, Christmas movie to some people.
True,
Jam,
yeah.
Baseball movie.
Okay, man, really strong out the gate. That is, I can't believe you went with that. I had it down. I was like, I'm not going to count it. Plus, this is tough. I mean, there are lots of baseball movies in general, but there are a lot of really good ones too. So
there was a golden age here for a minute, just like 80s, 90s, baseball, so many baseball movies. We don't see a lot of sports movies nowadays, but when we do, it's not really baseball. Football's been done a lot, basketball recently, but we need to get back to the glory age, the golden age of baseball.
I agree, because I feel like sports movies now it's about a horse, like Seabiscuit and like Invictus. I think wasn't that rugby? I'm like, that's not
Concussion, which was kind of the
feel-good movie of the season.
Tell the truth. How did Will Smith not win an Oscar for that one? That's all I want to know.
Oh, that's good stuff, man. Okay, Space Jam is a strong start. My number 5, I'm curious what you think of this. I'm going with 61.
The Roger Maris movie, correct?
Yep.
I'll tell you what, that's one of that I want to go back and revisit, because when I was researching this too, that's one that popped up a lot. And I feel like that's a movie I watched fairly recently, but I fell asleep on. It's one of those late night movies. Let me tell you a little something about me. I like anything that looks like old, like a period piece. Like, I just find comfort in it. Like, I like to go to sleep to those things. Like, I like to watch like awful, they call them B-side movies.
Oh yeah.
About aliens attacking the planet and stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff I'm into, but I like things that look old. So that is one that I kind of like, a little more lightness and fun to my baseball movies, and not so as much of a biopic, if you will. But
yeah,
not bad. A very forgotten player as well, Roger Maris. He was better than a lot of people remember or give him credit for.
Yeah, exactly. I did some research after watching it, because I was like, I always knew that as like kind of being a trivia guy. I knew that, the 61 signified his breaking the record. And that was all I really knew about him, was in what was chronicled in that movie. But yeah, he was a really, really good player for a long time. And it's just it's, as I was kind of going through my list, there's baseball movies and there's movies about baseball, and there's different kind of gray areas of how they approach it. And I felt that it really showed the kind of the human side behind it. And I agree with you too. I enjoy period pieces a lot. So to kind of um, be taken back to that time period and the things you maybe wouldn't have thought about, like, yeah, Babe Ruth's widow, and how that would have affected her, and she's there. And because all those things and all those names in my mind are way in the past. So to kind of bring life to that time was really cool. So
Another hot take for you, since you mentioned it, I wasn't going to throw it out there, but Babe Ruth, greatest black baseball player of all time. Another conversation for another day.
that would be a really good. Okay, so we need to keep a list of our top fives. Got sneaky hot sitcom mom or TV moms, and top 5 hot takes. And that would be a great one to explore. I love that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so your number 4, number 5, you had Space Jam. What do you got at number 4?
Number 4 kind of goes against what I just said, because this is actually based on a true story. But it's funny as all get out. And even if you looked around this past Halloween, you see a lot of costumes that still represent this movie. And it is one called A League of Their Own. I mean, for me, it's number 4. It's a very, I don't feel like you can be on a list of top 5 movies in any category. It's hard to make that list without a lot of quotables. And this is like one of the greatest quotes of all. There's no crying in baseball. It's just like, you can hear it at any ballpark at any given moment. You know what I mean? It's just one of the best baseball quotes of all time. And you look at the cast. I mean, Tom Hanks, legend. I mean, there's a Hall of Fame for movies, first ballot Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Rosie O'Donnell. I mean, there's so many. You just look up the people and what they did after this movie in the cast. And I can't remember. I have to look it up, but I can't. I need to go to IMDb. My favorite, the younger sister in the movie.
Lori Petty.
Lori Petty, yeah. She's just, I love her so much. And, she was in Orange is the New Black recently. She did a great job in that. She's just likable in every role, even when she's been a brat in that movie, just likable. So,
yeah.
And the fact that it was based on a true story, I actually went back and watched this movie recently because I was actually intrigued by the actual women's baseball league. And I watched like the real documentary on it, like with the real players and stuff. Like I fall down rabbit holes like this a lot. I'll end up on Wikipedia at 2 a.m. like just doing research on what this movie was about in the Rockford Peaches or whoever, what teams they were. And it's a really good movie.
Absolutely. I don't know if you experienced this like I do, but because of when it came out, I believe it came out in 92. So we were kids and kind of young kids. What I see, and that was such a big part of my childhood, that movie was like Shawshank. It was always on TBS or TNT. And, we had the VHS
always
tape.
On TBS, yes.
Whenever I see somebody from that movie in something else, I always think like, oh, I know them from a League.
You're like Leo DiCaprio. Oh, that's you like the Leo DiCaprio man.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's him. That's the guy from the movie. Yeah, I do that with that movie a lot. So that's a really strong pick.
It's a great cast. And what's crazy is in that time period, just as a baseball nerd as I am, people really got paid a really decent living. Like right now, you think MLB, Major League Baseball, you get paid to go play baseball, right? And everything else is after that in the United States is just, it's crumbs and pennies. But like, you think of the major factories that kind of ran the workforce in America back then, like they all had a very serious like traveling baseball team, at least for their region. And you can make good money playing for those teams. And that actually, the movie touches on that a little bit. And I think that's a really cool and interesting part of baseball history.
Yeah, absolutely. They kind of touched on that in Field of Dreams too, a little bit. Mm-hmm. So we may talk about that a little down the road. Okay, so we're still at number 4. My number 5 was 61. My number 4 for you is The Sandlot. It's steeped in nostalgia. I mean, growing up as a kid, I mean, that was one of those movies that, again, it was on a lot. When you talk about quotables, You're Killing Me,
Absolutely.
Smalls might be one of the most quotable movie quotes of all time. And it's just so much fun. You know, you've got the hero and Benny, you've got the underdog and Smalls, and just the funny big kid in Porter, and I mean, I don't know that this gets talked about enough, but James Earl Jones,
Mhm.
I know he's got the iconic voice. He's Darth Vader, he's Mufasa, but he's an incredible actor, and not just the voice. He is amazing. And I love him in that movie when they talk about the baby. He's like, "Oh, George." And oh, dude, I love that movie.
I will say, feeling a tad bit disrespected about where you place this movie on your
Oh,
top
okay.
5 list, but we can touch on that later. But everything you said, I mean, I love watching things that makes me feel like I'm there, and
Mhm.
that's one of those things you feel like you're with your buddies. You know what I mean? And like you said, it's a nostalgia piece, for sure. But I have more thoughts on the Sandlot, which I'll
We'll
bring up
probably get
later.
to that.
But I will say this: think about the legacy of s'mores. Like, where are s'mores as a food without that movie?
Wow, that's a really good point.
Like, the
Yeah,
kids, the kids even know about s'mores without the Sandlot.
that's really
That's how
true.
me being a black kid. That's how I learned about s'mores. I didn't know
You
s'mores were
learned
a
it from that?
thing from the Sandlot. Yes, I was the one that was killing Smalls because I didn't know. But but it's a very special movie. I'm surprised it hasn't been redone yet, and I'm sure with Disney Plus it'll happen too.
Yeah, and I'll watch it. Absolutely. Okay. So we are
LeBron James will steal it and call it something else. He'll be the star of it.
yeah. Okay, we're at number 3 now, and I was trying to guess what would be on your list and what would make it versus what wouldn't. So I'm really curious how your top 3 shake out. What do you got at number 3?
Number 3 is a childhood favorite of mine that I did revisit lately. I got 4 kids at home, so I don't know if you know this, Cash, because you don't have kids yet, but anytime you try to watch something adult, the kids will immediately come like, "Hey, what's going on in here?" And you can't really enjoy it, right?
They
They
can
can leave.
sense you like something.
They can sense that you want a little tiny piece of enjoyment for yourself as an adult, and you don't really get to do that. So what we do is we watch a lot of things together. Like, we watched Little Giants together recently. We watched Mighty Ducks together recently. We watched The Mandalorian together. So a lot of the things I watch are not, you know, too serious, too adult, which brings me to number 3, Rookie of the Year. Now,
Okay.
this is, I believe, one of the most underrated baseball movies because people talk about The Sandlot all the time, but they don't talk about this movie. And it's really good. I mean, I remember feeling kind of like I was an outlier in how much I liked this when I was a kid, but we went back and watched it recently, and I was like, no, this holds up. This is still really good. Henry Rowan Gardner throws gas. Okay, first and foremost.
Yeah.
And fun fact: Henry Rowan Gardner's mom from the movie is the female sergeant on Chicago PD. A lot of people might not realize that.
No.
So Rookie of the Year is awesome. For people who don't remember what Rookie of the Year is, um, I'm trying to think. Is there somebody? There was something I was watching recently, and my wife pointed out, "Oh, that's Pacey from Dawson's Creek," and I was like, "What?" I don't think it was that movie, but Henry Rowan Gardner grew up to be in some other stuff. That actor.
He was in American Pie.
That's yes. He was Tara Reid's. Was Tara Reid in that movie? He was a
Yeah, he
short
was
guy.
Kevin in American
Yeah,
Pie.
okay. That's what it was. I was surprised by. But basically, he's a terrible baseball player. He slips and falls, has a freak accident at a game one day, and he has to have some kind of surgery on his throwing arm, and it gets wound too tight, basically. And all of a sudden, he goes from being awful to the surgery made him throw over 100 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And he ends up on the Chicago Cubs back when the Cubs were just like the biggest losers in the world. And all of a sudden, he takes them to heights they haven't been in a long time. He's just throwing gas. And we talk about quotables. I eat fastballs for breakfast. I mean, that's people are still saying that. It's on shirts, and that comes
Yeah.
from that movie as well.
And don't ever forget Funky Butt Lovin'.
Yeah. One thing I realized going back and watching some of these movies, children's movies with my children, is that there's some really inappropriate things in some of these movies back in the 80s and 90s.
They sneak them in. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So at number 3, we talked a little bit before about, baseball movies versus movies about baseball. I wasn't really sure how to categorize this one, but my number 3 is Moneyball.
I knew this would be on your list. It
I
just fits. You love. I feel like you love like the big name actors who deliver in roles. So like Brad Pitt and then Jonah Hill. You know what I mean? They you are very classical, I won't say classical cinema guy, but you have a love for movies that is it fair to say that it's beyond what a normal person's love for movies is? And this is like a critically acclaimed movie. So
yeah,
I figured it would make your list.
I am a huge fan of I'm a huge fan of when big stars step out and do different types of things. Like Brad Pitt to me, and I'm definitely not the first one to ever say this, but Brad Pitt is a character actor in a leading man's physique.
Right.
Like he's, and Jonah Hill, I did not care for starting out. I mean, I loved Superbad, but I didn't care for him because I was a bigger guy, funny guy. I always got compared to him and Seth
Mhm.
Rogen. That was a little annoying, but I've grown to really appreciate his acting. But the movie itself is just so well done, and I love the analytical side of things. I love just the feel of the movie, the pacing of it. It doesn't have as much of the like to me when I think of the Sandlot or I think of A League of Their Own, you can feel the dirt, you can see the sweat on the players.
Mhm.
Moneyball is kind of a slick, uh, uh, much more Hollywood representation of a baseball story, but I still really love it. And it was one of those I hadn't seen in a while, and I rewatched it not too long ago, and it holds up. At least it does for me.
Do you want to know one of the things that's weird to me at my age now, being 35 and almost 35, not 35 yet, excuse me, growing up in an era where like I like to a kid, like a college kid watching that movie, they have no idea. It's all brand new to them. But like I'm listening to songs coming on streaming now and sometimes on the radio, and it's like I'm hearing new artists sample songs that got sampled when I was in high school. Is that you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
with Moneyball, it's like, the Oakland A's are still a thing. Like these analytics are still a thing. It's like it's almost for me. It was like this is too soon. This is too soon to make this kind of movie because it's still Billy Bean's still a thing. You know what
Oh,
I mean?
okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's like, what do we really? Sometimes in those movies, I'm afraid that we don't really get everything because when people are still alive, they take it like easy on them. That's why I'm a big pro wrestling fan. So they say with Vince McMahon, there's supposed to be a biopic about him, but it's like no one wants to do it while he's alive because he's just blocking everything,
Right.
blocking them from the real good stuff. But it's always interesting to me to see these things like to play out on the big screen while people are still living. Like there's been talk about like Colin Kaepernick movie and things like that. I'm like, I don't want these things yet until these people are comfortable enough to not stop the truth or you know what I mean, a good story.
Yeah. No, I get that. Absolutely. That's why, it's funny you say that because you remember it wasn't, I don't remember if it was made for TV, but it was like the Michael Jordan story. And it was kind of like this unauthorized biography, kind of a fantasy telling of his story up until the
I
Chicago,
mean,
like,
I mean to be fair, the Last Dance was also the same the same thing. Like that was definitely Jordan telling the story the way that he wanted to tell the story. I
hey,
mean,
you talk about quotables, and I
yeah,
took that personally.
yes,
We'll
another
get so many mileage out of that, so much
uh,
mileage out of that.
a great meme for sure.
Okay, so we're nearing the top now, and I feel like there's probably going to be some overlap here. We've got number 5 for you, Space Jam. Number 4, A League of Their Own. Number 3, Rookie of the Year. What do you got in at number 2?
And number two is another one of those movies where you look back and you're like, I know that guy. Oh my gosh, look how young he looks. Look at this cast, and it's Major League. It's my number two movie. Like I said, I like to laugh. I like to have a lighthearted, fun time when I'm watching movies. And Major League is a movie that I didn't watch again until recently. I remember it from when I was a kid, um, but I just watched it again recently within the last couple of weeks. I'm like, damn, this is good. Like it's comedy, like it's like the character acting is great. Like you forget that Charlie Sheen, I think he was only 22 in this movie. It's like Wesley
Yeah.
Snipes, like, oh my gosh, like it's just it's a crazy cast. You got the janitor from Scrubs, who's like it's interesting. Oh, the guy from the You're in Good Hands with Allstate or whatever. He's in the movie. Yeah. It's like,
He's
oh,
the voodoo guy.
this is crazy. And I read that Charlie Sheen, actually, I learned that he was actually a high school pitcher, believe it or not. So he was actually doing all his own pitching in the movie. And he was on steroids. He was.
Oh, really?
He said he took steroids to get him better prepared for this movie. And he was actually, believe it or not, they said that once they got really rolling and going, he was throwing 85 miles per hour.
Seriously?
Yes.
Good
That's
Lord,
the story.
man.
He was throwing 85, but that's also on PEDs, allegedly. So, and who knows what other drugs Charlie Sheen was on at the time?
That's very true.
I mean,
just in the snow.
A gym. Major League is a gym. It's one of those movies where I can see, like, let's remake this. Let's put Kevin Hart in it and some, you know what I mean? The Rock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can
a
see
little
that
ensemble.
Happen. Yeah.
So I don't want to disappoint you, but that was on my list of, I did not like it at all.
What?
I think the problem I have is I didn't watch it when I was younger. Like, I didn't grow up with it. I only watched it later in life. And I recently rewatched it to see if it was just me, if I was just in a mood or something. And I don't know what it is. I just don't care for it. The jokes don't land for me. It's quirky.
There is some inside baseball stuff in there too, just like with the locker room etiquette and some of the talk between, you know, like first baseman and base runners and stuff like that as well. But
yeah, and that would probably be much more suited for you and probably kind of goes over my head a bit. But it was one, like, there's so many movies from the 80s specifically, and maybe the 70s a little bit too, that, you know, our generation, some of them connect, but a lot of them for me don't. Like, when I hear the boomers talk about how funny movies are from the 80s, and I'll watch Revenge of the Nerds and I'll watch Animal House, and I'm like, this is what you think is one of the funniest movies of all time. This is garbage. And I'm not saying Major League's on.
It's like when I listen to the Beatles. Like,
yeah, I'm like,
Beatles
this
are
is
so
what
iconic.
You
say it's your birthday.
Trash.
It's my birthday too. Terrible. I'm a Stones guy. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Mick Jagger was talking about Puerto Rican girls and all this. You know, I'm here for it.
I've got more in common with that guy for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so for my number 2, I think you'll probably agree with the pick. I went with Rookie of the Year.
Okay. I didn't think this would make. I thought this was more obscure than that, but I like the fact that this made your list, because most people, I feel like, don't give this the credit it deserves.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they're kind of on par. They're on par with each other. Rookie of the Year and The Sandlot. They're both nostalgic. That they might have been the same year. I think 93 was when they both came out. To me, they're Walmart and Target, and then Angels in the Outfield is like Kmart. To me, I just didn't resonate with the other one.
Former Kmart worker, by the way. So I don't know.
Trust me, I know low quality when I see it. But no, Rookie of the Year was just so much fun. Like you talked about earlier, you know, quotables, the relationship with his mom, you know, the float, and his relationship with Gary Busey when he's playing.
Oh my gosh,
he was playing the Game Boy.
It's so crazy to look back and see Gary Busey together-ish. You know what I mean? And being an actual serious actor. That's one of the movies that I'll watch back, and I was like, I can't believe kids did this. They rode their bikes up to Wrigley Field like on their own as like fifth graders, doing whatever the hell they wanted to do in Chicago, of all places.
Yeah,
like
that's the freedom we wish we would have had.
A different time for sure.
And also, before we move on to the number ones, Rookie of the Year, the Daniel Stern, Rickma,
yeah,
very underrated, super funny, hot ice. Just when you're a kid and you got something that goofy, you fall in love with it. And then also the recurring Rosenboozer, Risen Gardner, Rowan Booter, like
Yeah.
all the different names. Throw the heat. I mean, those are just iconic images I remember from being a kid watching that movie, and I absolutely loved it. So,
Can I put this out now before we move on? Because it's
mhm.
just never going to happen for me. But I had this idea years ago, um, like to do a movie, like a movie script. It was called Rookie of the Leap Year. You got the little carrot above between the two words. So
Uh-huh.
it was about a guy, and in my head it was going to be played by Will Ferrell, who's just like, and this is back when Will Ferrell was like Will Ferrell.
Relevant.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was like an a underachieving adult, not good at anything, just got divorced, like nothing. But his birthday happens to be February 29th. So he actually finds out he's eligible to play by age in the youth soccer league in his town.
That's genius, dude.
It's the first like bit of success he's ever had in his entire life. And
You have to make that movie,
I
man.
know we'll have to partner on together. I have all these
Oh,
ideas I never act on because of my Pisces, and that's what we do. But that was just one of my so nobody steal it if you're watching it. This is proof here that it was my idea. Rookie
patent
of the league.
pending. Don't do it. That's really funny, dude. Seriously, that's really great.
Kevin Hart will steal it. He'll make it. Him and The Rock will be in it. It'll be like everything. Kevin
Two,
Hart, The
three
Rock.
times a year. They're coming out with a new one.
Yep.
All right. It's time for the number one spot. We've got Shy Holder, his top 5 baseball movies of all time. Number 5, Space Jam. Number 4, A League of Their Own. Number 3, Rookie of the Year. Number 2, Major League. I'm trying to think of what number 1 would be, and I'm gonna wait to see what you say.
I think this is probably if you did a poll of people who like these kind of movies, baseball movies, even baseball players. I saw on YouTube a week or so ago where they asked baseball players what their favorite baseball movie of all time was, and most of them said The Sandlot. Well, that's number 1 for me as well. And I tried to be like, I had to talk myself out of being the contrarian because I was like, everybody thinks Sandlot's number 1. Let me go something different. And I thought I toyed with putting Rookie of the Year at number 1. I was like, there's just too much that comes from Sandlot. And you talk about something that holds up. You talked about yourself earlier a few minutes ago when you watched things from the 80s and the 90s. You know, sometimes you're just like, this is what people found funny. Like, imagine me with my kids trying to show them things sometimes that I think were cool. You know what I mean?
And they're like, "Oh,
But
Dad, this is stupid."
yeah, they love The Sandlot. like it's a brand new movie to them. It holds up for them as if it were just released now, the same way it did for me when I was a kid. I mean, I'm talking about gut busting, laugh out loud on the floor, funny. My 11-year-old was saying L7 weenie for quite a long time. I mean, it's just I think it's a perfect family movie, but also obviously there's some nostalgia to it.
Yeah.
And there's some history lessons in there. It's like you said, it's one of those period pieces where you flash back into time. And there's a lot to take away from the movie, but the ensemble cast, there's always a what do they call it? You're the movie guy. I had it off the tip of my tongue, like not a fish out of water comedy, but you know, when you have all this large group of friends and they're all misfits, and it's one of those things.
Yeah, Island of Misfit Toys.
Yeah, they can. I think everybody can pick someone from this movie that they relate to, and
yeah,
there's so much you can do. Like with the Cobra Kai thing on Netflix now, you could do that with The Sandlot. Like they tell you what all these guys went on to do. Like, oh, this guy went on to be a pro wrestler. This guy went on to be, you know what I mean? There's so many paths you can take. There's a whole Sandlot universe we haven't unlocked yet that we could do. But
yeah, and that's kind of middle America. You know, even if you move away, you always kind of come back to your hometown or home state at least, and you could have their kids play ball. You know,
mm-hmm.
There's a lot of sentimentality to that movie. It's not just hijinks and fun and, you know, the dog and all that. It's, you know, at the end when they kind of start fading away and they talk about what, you know, what happened with them and their futures, it's kind of got a Stand By Me element to it. You're like, man, you really don't have friends like the ones you do when you're 12. And there's some heart to that. And that makes, that movie, I agree, being number 4 on my list is a little low, but
it's just
had to be true.
It's so iconic, and like you said, at any given day you can hear somebody quote that movie.
Mm-hmm.
like my kid has a shirt in his closet right now that says "You're Killing Me" Smiles. It has ham on it. I go, I coach in a lot of travel baseball tournaments. Every now and then I'll see another coach or a parent with a Sandlot shirt on or something. Like it's crazy that it still holds up. I am absolutely floored that Disney Plus hasn't done something with it yet. It might have something to do with the rights. Because I know it was on Disney Plus for a little bit, then it went off and it came back, and it went off and came back. So I know they're trying to capitalize on Mighty Duck soon, doing a new one with the media. So
Yeah.
they got to do something with the Sandlot. I mean, it's a perfect time.
Okay. So number one spot, my run back, my top five so far. Number 5, I've got 61 asterisk. Sandlot at number 4, Moneyball number 3, Rookie of the Year comes in at number 2, and my number 1 baseball movie of all time. Do you have any guesses?
Bull Durham.
We'll talk about Bull Durham. It's not, but we'll talk about it.
Let me get another guess.
Okay.
He said Angels in the Outfield, wasn't it? What's the one with Matt LeBlanc and the monkey? Is that it?
Oh man,
not that. I didn't
even think about that one. That's not it.
Little Big League. That's my final guess.
That's a really good guess. It is not Little Big League. Okay. My number 1, you've actually already mentioned it before. It is A League of Their Own.
Okay. I forgot about it. Yes. I could see that. I mean, being the movie buff you are, just that cast is it's
amazing.
It's amazing.
And there's 2 things that I'll talk about, and I'm going to have to learn to stop talking about this so much because I feel like it comes up in multiple episodes, especially when we talk about movies. But there's 2 things I love that I think suck people into movies more. It really is the music, the da-da-da, that Hans Zimmer score during the game, the final World Series game or whatever, between the 2 sisters, gets me every time. It's so good. And I have a theory too about movies and why we love them, certain ones. I think, and Quentin Tarantino does this a lot, I think if there's food or drink in a movie that looks super appetizing, it draws you in weirdly. Like if there's a cake and it just looks amazing, you're like, oh man, that cake looks really good. They're making it look like it tastes great. When Tom Hanks and Gina Davis are on the bus and he's getting ready to hit his flask of whiskey and she's like, no. And she pops a Coke bottle and says, have this instead. And he takes a sip of the Coca-Cola and he's like, it makes me want a cold Coca-Cola so bad every time. There's just something I think that triggers the senses. But yeah, no, it's a wonderful movie. I was glad that it made your list. It's funny that our lists are kind of inverted a little bit.
There are not a lot of people who play like a fall down wino drunk better than Tom Hanks did.
Yeah, he was super convincing.
I mean, pulled it out, just peeing it, wherever he was in front of the ladies. And one of the things I like about League of Their Own is like it wasn't a conventional like ending. Because depending on what side you're on, like some people didn't want Kit to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, I wanted it because I'm the little brother. So like for me, I was rooting for her. Yeah. But it's like you also could be rooting for, Dottie to, finish out the season as well. The other thing is, a lot of times, directors and writers will set up, some relationship tension, some sexual frustration between 2 characters, and you're like, we're going to get this delivery on it, and it never really happened between Gina Davis and Tom Hanks in the movie, which I thought for sure would happen.
They did flirt a couple of times with that.
I heard there was actually a deleted scene where something happened between them that didn't make the actual movie.
Oh, really? I'm glad it didn't. I feel like that would have ruined it.
I think they kissed or something, and then she like slapped him or something. I don't remember. I read that though.
I wouldn't have liked that at all.
I watched this movie around Christmas time last year, and I ended up, like I said, going down a rabbit hole, and I found out that happened in the movie.
Wow.
But then it ended up on the cutting room floor. But I thought I'm weird about relationships in movies and film. Like, I don't know if you ever watched Longmire, the TV series, but like
I haven't, no.
I never wanted the 2 characters in that show to be together, although it's they're based off books, so it's going to happen. I just feel like they had no on-screen chemistry, so it didn't make sense. But Dottie and Jimmy had all the chemistry in the world, and it's just so cool to see them. It's crazy watching movies nowadays, because like even it's like those movies from the 90s and the 80s. They would set up their story in like 5 minutes. Like, oh, we went to this town, we got this player. We went to this town, we got this player. Movies now are so long, they just drag on and on before they really get into it. And it's like, let our imaginations fill in the blanks of what happened. You know what I mean? You don't have to explain every detail for us and get us to the good stuff. And I like that they did that. And I will say Madonna, who I've never really been a fan of, she always seems so boring and like just weird.
Yeah.
She's a good actress. Like she was really good at this role. She did a great job. She's talented.
Her and Rosie O'Donnell together were a great pairing.
Oh my God. They're like real life. They were real life friends for a long time, right? I don't know if they still are now, but I think I remember.
No, I think they became friends from that movie. Like they carried.
They did great together.
Yeah. Okay, solid top fives, man. There's a couple that I wanted to bring up. Bull Durham being one of them. I will admit I have never seen Bull Durham, so I don't know if it would make my top five or not. But
Costner's. They say it's not like a romantic thing, but there's some comedy in it. But it's regarded by a lot of people as their number one baseball movie. It's not my speed though. Now
I will say, because I looked up a lot of this stuff too. A lot of baseball movies, and I wanted to make sure there wasn't stuff that I missed. The Natural with Robert Redford. Far and away, so many people, like Bill Simmons was like, if your number one favorite sports movie of all time isn't The Natural or Hoosiers, there's something wrong with you. I'm like, okay, it's Bill Simmons, first of all, but The Natural.
One, I don't think you could be from Indiana. I don't think you could be from Indiana and think the movie Hoosiers is that great, because it's just so far from like reality. You know what I mean? There's so much more to it. I guess from the outside looking in, you can think the Hoosiers is great, but like there's a whole other there's like a whole racism thing in there, and there's a lot of actual history. But have
you seen The Natural?
Yes.
Did you like it?
Not well enough to remember. It's one of those movies where you're just like, I didn't get through it, honestly, if I'm thinking correctly, because it's like, this isn't moving me the way. And I watch a lot of crappy. I just watched a baseball movie a few weekends ago with my wife with Sofia Vergara and her husband in it. It's like a straight to DVD movie.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. He's I'll look up the name of this real quick, but he like accidentally kills somebody when he like involuntary manslaughter, when he's like first gets called to the major leagues, and then his career goes away. So he's in prison for like 15 years and he gets out and he tries to make a comeback basically. And I don't want to spoil it. Not that you'll ever watch it, but I sat through that.
You never know. Hey, I'm a single dude. I'll watch lots of movies. Man. You don't know. That's okay. So I'm glad that The Natural didn't kind of stick with you, because I remember I was watching it and I was like, seriously, what do people see? Again, maybe chalk it up to the 80s where people are full of cocaine and drug, booze and all kinds of stuff, where they thought stuff was better than it really was, but I did not care for it. And
Bottom of the Ninth is the name of that movie. It's on Amazon Prime. Sofia Vergara.
Bottom of the Ninth?
Yes. And Joe, however he's that guy. Yeah.
Those are two big names to be in a straight to
I know.
DVD
It was like a one of those independent films that gets entered into the, everybody does their thing where they're finding themselves, their serious actor role. And I think I had no idea they were married either, by the way.
Yeah.
She is so pleasant to look at.
So I wonder who number one on your top TV moms list is, although she's not sneaky.
No, that's just in your face. She's the New York Yankees of TV moms. It's not.
Yeah. I also will say that I have never seen the movie 42.
I was going to say that was going to be one that I think people will be surprised that maybe wasn't on my list. But with me being the baseball lover that I am and like a historian, like I don't think it's possible. I understand why it was a movie. I think it might be a Disney movie as well, which is a problem because Disney can't really tell anything.
They'll kind of erase a lot of the.
Yeah, and it has to be very happy ending and stuff like that. But
yeah,
you cannot tell the story of Jackie Robinson and what happened with him in 2 or 3 hours. Like it's just, you're not going to do it justice. And so to me, there were so many holes all over the place in 42 it was just an incomplete movie. It was just
You
like
need like a Last Dance 10 episode
exactly.
miniseries.
It was like a synopsis. Like, oh, the Branch Rick. Oh, the owner wants to integrate. Everybody's against it. I'm going to do it anyway. Now you're here. People were mean to you. Now they're coming around. Now you got a friend. Now you're a legend. Like it was just rushing through everything. And there's so much stuff out there on Jackie Robinson that's better. He's actually, believe this or not, Jackie Robinson has a movie that he stars in himself, playing himself, telling his own life story. And I believe that's on Amazon Prime for free as well. It's the Jackie Robinson story starring Jackie Robinson.
How have I never heard of this? Is it good?
Not the greatest actor. I don't see how you can't be the greatest actor when you're just playing yourself, but it's like he's playing himself, like he's older, but he's playing himself from college all the way on. It's like, dude, you're not 18. Like, you know what I mean? But it does give an interesting perspective on his life and whatnot, and tell some things that in the movie 42 they don't ever really tell you. Like, he was like, as good as he was in baseball, he was that good in football in college. Like, he could have easily.
Oh, he was just Bo Jackson, just good at everything.
He could have easily went to the NFL. Like, he was a great player for UCLA. But yeah, like if I'm to the point now with something like that, I would rather watch, like, I don't want to be one of those, I watched the documentary and the real movie. But I would watch I'd watch the actual documentary if I wanted to know about Jackie Robinson. It's good for the kids. I played it for my kids so they can learn a little bit about what he went through and stuff like that. But and obviously Chadwick Boseman, who had an amazing run in such a short amount of time. Yeah, he's in it too. So it doesn't really rank in the top 5 for me, but it's definitely, not a bad movie. But
where does Field of Dreams land with you?
I do not remember much from Field of Dreams. I just remember it didn't make me feel great. You know what I mean? I'm a feelings person. Like, how does this movie make me feel?
Yeah.
And like, the less serious it is, usually the better I am. Like, I'm very much an empath. So like, if things are too heavy, like for instance, Parks and Rec, I still to this day have not watched the final episode because I don't want to feel sad because I don't know what happens. Like, I'm that type of person. I won't watch the series finales of episodes.
Oh, wow.
Because it brings me too much grief. Like, I know what happens at the end of Sons of Anarchy because people have told me, but I won't bring myself to watch it. Like, I can't go through that. So like, when things I know are going to be sad or challenging emotionally, I'll be like, yeah, I'm good. Like, I'll watch a comedy. There's very few things. Like, I told myself, like, when they see us on Netflix about the Exonerated 5 from the Central Park incident in New York, like, it's like, I can't watch that. Like, I'm just not that type of person. Like, I feel too many emotions when I watch things that aren't just, comedies or happy, which is one reason I don't watch a lot of movies.
I have to be in the mood for it. But when I like a series finale or something like what you're talking about, or a really emotional episode, like, it'll hit and I got to be in the mode for it. But I don't think you're missing much with Field of Dreams. That's another one of those that was always at the top of
if you build it, they will
lists.
come. That's
which is iconic, but I think it's not, again, it's a movie about baseball. It's not a baseball movie. It's more fantasy, supernatural. Another great role.
Ghost, but with baseball.
Yeah, exactly. It's another great role by James Earl Jones. I wish he was in it more. And I wish that was explained a little better. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be, like, towards the end when he goes into the corn, but I enjoyed it for what it was. I wasn't, super blown away by it. So it didn't make the top 5, but I figure we should probably mention it if we're talking baseball movies.
I'm absolutely, I'll say I'm floored that you didn't like Major League. I just feel like that. I felt like that was right up your wheelhouse. You know what I mean? It just makes me feel good. I feel like it just takes me back to like a simpler time where movies weren't so serious and it was just it's kind of outrageous in some parts, but it's just like, we're just going to throw in all this stuff and make you laugh. We're going to fill this cast with a bunch of stereotypes. And I'm like, it's streaming for free. 1 and 2 though. I've not seen 2 before. I'm going to try to watch that this week. And there's a third one.
There's a third one too. Yeah.
I'm going to try to watch it.
I saw the IMDb ratings they just kind of
That's usually how things go for
Yeah.
I think the only good third installment of a series I've seen is what was American Pie. The third one was good.
American Wedding.
Um,
I can't remember if it was good or not. For me, Goldmember.
yeah, definitely not. I cannot remember. I've always said Hangover 3 was not great. We're in agreement on that, right?
Yeah, oh
I
yeah,
feel like,
absolutely.
I can't remember what I had this argument. I can't remember now. It's useless now. But there's only one trilogy I've seen where the third movie was any good, and I can't remember which one that is now. Hopefully,
How do you feel about Goldmember? Austin Powers.
I don't like any of those movies. I do not think
What?
Mike Myers is funny.
Oh
Saturday
man,
Night Live. I don't think he's funny as Austin Powers. He's never been funny to me.
we've got another hot take. We got another
No.
one for the list.
The funniest he's ever been was when he was standing next to Kanye West. Like, what did you just say? When Kanye said George Bush doesn't like black people.
Yeah.
He's Canadian, so you know he made that face. It was crazy, but no, I'm not.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, I guess Goldmember wasn't for you. That would be a good list, top sequels or whatever. Yeah. By the time the third one rolls around, it's not very good.
Yeah.